His breath was ragged hot against my neck as he pressed himself closer, the laundry room door rattling behind us. My hands clutched his arms, fingers digging into muscle, while his grip on my hips trembled unsteady, but firm. The air was heavy with his scent, sweatgrass from the field, a faint trace of soap, and my own nervous heat. His movements were urgent, too forceful, and I gasped the pressure, overwhelming, not quite right. Slower, I whispered, my voice breaking guilt slicing through me, but my body shifted, guiding him, craving the connection I'd buried for years. His eyes met mine wide, desperate, and I let him try again, my breath hitching, as the rhythm steadied, raw and undeniable. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't lonely. I just didn't want him to stop. I'm Karen, 42, a married mum of 2 living in a suburban house that feels more like a routine than a home. He's Tyler, 22, my son Ethan's soccer teammate, a college senior who's been around our family for years. My husband Mike is reliable, but distracted, always on his phone or at the office. Ethan's 20, focused on school and sports, and our daughter Sophie is 16, caught up in her own world. Tyler was just a kid to me at first, polite, lanky, always joking with Ethan. But this summer, he changed, broader, quieter, his eyes lingering in a way that woke something in me I thought was gone. What would you do if your son's teammate touched your hand, his fingers lingering, and you felt a spark you hadn't in years? It started 3 months ago at a team barbecue in our backyard. Tyler stayed late to help clean up, and his arm brushed mine as we stacked plates. I should have stepped back, laughed it off. Instead, I let his gaze hold mine, let the moment stretch, and that silence was the first crack in my resolve. The night in the laundry room wasn't planned. Mike was at a work dinner, Ethan at practice, Sophie at a friend's. I was folding clothes, the house too quiet, when Tyler stopped by to grab Ethan's cleats. I invited him in, offered a soda, and we talked, the air shifting as he leaned closer. When he kissed me, his lips soft, but sure, I froze, my heart pounding. "Karen, we shouldn't," he said, but his hands were already on me, and I didn't pull away. I let the counter hold our weight, let his touch unravel me, desperate and messy. When it was over, his forehead pressed to mine, both of us panting. I felt alive, desired for the first time in years. But the guilt was already there, sharp and heavy, waiting to crush me. I don't know how to face Ethan or Mike, or even myself. But I let Tyler try again, let him wake me up, and now I'm someone I don't know. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe. Try to watch the video for as long as possible. By watching the content more frequently, YouTube will recommend these stories to a wider audience, which will help the channel grow and provide you with more content to enjoy. Let's get started right away. Loneliness doesn't announce itself. It just settles in, quiet and heavy, until you realize it's been there all along. At 42, I'd grown used to it, the silent dinners when Mike was late, the way Ethan and Sophie needed me less, the way my reflection showed a woman who'd stopped expecting more. I wasn't miserable, not really. I had my family, my part-time job at the community center, a life that looked full from the outside. But there was an emptiness, a hunger I didn't name until Tyler started looking at me like I was more than Ethan's mom. Tyler had been around for years, always at our house for team dinners or game nights. He was just a kid back then, gangly loud with a grin that made you smile back. But this summer, after his senior year of college, he was different. Taller, broader, with a quiet confidence that caught me off guard. He started coming by more often, helping Ethan with drills or fixing things around the house, a loose fence board, a squeaky door. "You don't have to do that," I'd say, but he'd shrug, his eyes warm, and I'd feel a flutter I hadn't in years. I was lonely, and Tyler filled a space I'd ignored. Mike and I were fine married, 20 years comfortable, but the spark was gone, buried under bills and schedules. He'd kiss my forehead at night, but it felt like habit, not desire. I'd stopped expecting to be seen to be wanted, but Tyler noticed me. He'd comment on small things, the new scarf I wore, the way I laughed at Ethan's bad jokes, and his words, simple but deliberate, lit something in me. "You're different, Karen," he said once, his voice low, and my pulse quickened, my defenses fraying. It started with moments I could have stopped. At the barbecue, he helped me carry dishes inside his arm, brushing mine, and I felt my breath catch. He'd show up unannounced, saying he was checking on Ethan, but he'd linger talking about his plans after graduation, asking about my day. His attention was a lifeline, pulling me out of the numbness I'd settled into. I'd catch myself watching him, his hands, as he fixed a chair, the way his shirt clung to his back after a run, and I'd hate myself for it. He was Ethan's friend, too young, too close to my family. But the truth was, I hadn't felt this alive in years, and Tyler was the reason. One evening, we were alone in the garage, sorting through old sports gear for Ethan. The air was warm, smelling of dust and oil, and Tyler handed me a box, his fingers grazing mine. He didn't pull back, and neither did I. "You're easy to talk to," he said, his voice soft, and I looked at him. His face close, his eyes steady. My heart pounded, and I wanted to lean in just for a second. "We should finish up," I said, stepping back. My hands shaky, but my voice was weak, and he saw it. Mike came home then, breaking the moment, but the air felt charged, like a storm waiting to break. That night, I lay awake, my mind racing. I loved my family. Mike's steadiness, Ethan's drive, Sophie's wit. I was supposed to be their anchor, not the woman noticing her son's friend. But Tyler was under my skin, and every time he was near, that resolve to stay distant crumbled a little more. I told myself I'd be stronger, keep it platonic, but deep down I knew I was lying to myself. The house felt different with Tyler, around like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. He was there more often, dropping off gear for Ethan, helping with chores, his presence a constant hum in the background of my days. I'd catch his eyes on me when I was setting out snacks for the team or folding laundry in the kitchen, and it wasn't casual anymore. It was heavy, deliberate, like he was seeing me in a way no one had in years. I knew I should shut it down, tell him to stop coming by. But I didn't. I let him linger, let the spark grow, and every moment we spent together felt like a step toward a line I couldn't uncross. We started finding reasons to be alone. He'd offer to help with tasks, carrying bags of mulch for the garden, fixing a shelf in the garage, and I'd let him even when I didn't need the help. One afternoon we were in the backyard, spreading soil for new flower beds. The air warm and thick with summer. His shirt clung to his back, and I watched my pulse loud in my ears as he shoveled dirt. Our hands brushed as we reached for the same bag, and I froze, feeling the warmth of his skin. "Sorry," he muttered, but his voice was low, and he didn't move back. I should have laughed, changed the subject. Instead, I looked at him. His face close, his eyes searching, and the air felt too small, too charged. "It's fine," I said, my voice shaky, and we kept working, but something had shifted, a silent agreement we didn't name. He started opening up, sharing pieces of himself. Over iced tea in the kitchen one day, he told me about his mom, how she worked 2 jobs to keep him in soccer, how he felt he owed her everything. "You get it, don't you?" he said, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass. "Doing whatever it takes for your family." I nodded, my throat tight, because I did years of putting Ethan and Sophie first, of burying my own needs. I told him about Mike, how we'd grown apart, how I missed feeling like a woman, not just a mom. Tyler listened, his eyes soft but intense, and I felt exposed, like he was seeing parts of me I'd hidden from everyone. The touches grew bolder. He'd pass me a tool, his fingers lingering on mine, or brush my arm when we stood close. Once in the garage, he helped me move a box, and his hand grazed my lower back, just for a second, sending a jolt through me. "You okay, Karen?" he asked, his voice low, and I nodded, my face hot, because I wasn't okay. I was slipping and I knew it. Every moment we spent together was a step closer to something dangerous, and the fear was as strong as the want. The almost moment came on a Tuesday evening. Mike was working late, the kids were out, and Tyler was over helping me organize Ethan's old gear. We were in the living room sorting cleats and jerseys, the air warm with late summer. He handed me a shin guard, his knee brushing mine, as he sat closer, and I felt my breath catch. "Karen," he said, his voice barely a whisper, and I turned his face inches from mine. I could smell his breath, mint a hint of soda, and see the tension in his jaw. His hand moved to my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin, and I leaned into it, my heart pounding before I pulled back, my breath ragged. "We can't," I said, but it sounded weak, like I was trying to convince myself. He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave mine. And when he left that night, the space between us felt alive, electric, like a storm about to break. I went to bed that night, my body humming, my mind screaming. I was Ethan's mom, Mike's wife. I was supposed to protect my family, not betray them. But Tyler was in my blood, and I didn't know how to get him out. Every time I saw him, I felt that line blurring, and I was terrified of how much I wanted to cross it. The line snapped on a Friday night, the house empty and too quiet. Mike was at a work dinner, Ethan at practice, Sophie at a friend's. I was in the laundry room folding towels, the hum of the dryer filling the silence when Tyler knocked. He'd come to grab Ethan's cleats left behind after a game. I let him in, offered a soda, and we ended up talking, leaning against the counter, the air warm and close. His knee brushed mine, and the casual ease of our conversation faltered, replaced by a tension that had been building for weeks. "Karen," he said, his voice low, "I can't stop thinking about you." My breath caught, and I wanted to tell him to leave, to stop, but my body wouldn't move. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on mine, and I saw the hunger there, the same need tearing me apart. I don't know who moved first. His lips found mine, urgent tasting of soda and want. His hands slid to my hips, pulling me against him, and I felt the strength in his grip, the heat of his body. My back hit the counter, the edge sharp against my spine, and his breath was hot on my neck, ragged like he was unraveling. He pressed closer, his movements too forceful at first, and I gasped the pressure, intense, not quite fitting. Slower, I whispered, my voice trembling, and I shifted, guiding him, my hands gripping his arms. When he tried again, the rhythm steadied, desperate but real, and I let myself go, let the world shrink to the warmth of his skin, the clutch of his fingers, the raw need driving us both. My nails dug into his shoulders, feeling the flecks of muscle, the sweat dampening his shirt. His moan was low, shaky, and every sensation was vivid. The creak of the counter, the faint grass scent, clinging to him, the way my body responded, despite the guilt screaming in my chest. It wasn't smooth or gentle. The laundry room was cramped, the dryer's heat making us sweat, and our breaths were out of sync, clumsy in their urgency. But it was human, undeniable, a release I hadn't known I needed. When it was over, he didn't pull away. His forehead pressed to mine, our breaths mingling, and for a moment I felt whole, desired, alive. But then reality slammed back, Mike's car in the driveway, Ethan's cleats on the floor, Sophie's laughter in my memory. I stepped back, my legs unsteady, and Tyler looked at me, his eyes wide, like he was waking up to the same truth. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice hoarse, but I shook my head, because I wasn't sorry, not yet. I was terrified, guilty, awake. "We shouldn't have," I said, but it sounded hollow, because I'd wanted it, and so had he. He reached for me, his hand brushing my arm, but I pulled away, my heart pounding. "You need to go," I said, and he nodded, grabbing the cleats, his shoulders tense. When the door closed behind him, I sank against the counter, my hands covering my face, the scent of him still on my skin. I'd let him in, let him break me open, and the shame was a weight I couldn't shake. But beneath it there was something else, a hunger, a need I couldn't unfeel, and that scared me more than anything. The guilt was a living thing, curling tight around my chest, making every breath a fight. I stood in the laundry room after Tyler left the dryer, still humming, and scrubbed my hands under cold water, trying to wash away the feel of him, his sweat, his grip, the heat of his breath. But it lingered, a ghost I couldn't shake. I kept seeing Ethan's face, his easy grin as he talked about the team, and Mike's tired but trusting, and my stomach churned. I'd betrayed them, risked everything. My marriage, my son's respect for a moment of feeling wanted. But even as I hated myself, I couldn't stop the craving, the way my skin still thrummed at the thought of Tyler. It was like I'd been numb for years, and he'd shocked me awake, only to leave me raw and exposed. The next morning, Ethan was home sprawled on the couch with his phone, and I forced a smile, my hand shaky as I poured coffee. "You okay, Mum?" he asked. Glancing up, and I nodded, muttering something about a long night, terrified he'd see the truth in my eyes. Tyler showed up that afternoon for practice, all easy laughs with Ethan, but his gaze flicked to me, brief and guarded, and it stung how he could act so normal while I was falling apart. I busied myself in the kitchen avoiding him, but every creak of the floor made me flinch, like Mike or Ethan would somehow know. We didn't talk about it, not for days, but Tyler kept coming by grabbing gear, dropping off team schedules, and the tension was there, a current under every glance. One evening, we were alone in the garage, looking for Ethan's old shin guards. He stood too close, his arm brushing mine, and I felt it again, that spark dangerous and alive. "Karen." He whispered, his voice low. I can't stop thinking about it. My heart lurched, and I wanted to tell him to shut up, to leave, but my body leaned toward him, traitor that it was. "Not here," I said, my voice tight, and he nodded, but his eyes were dark, conflicted, and I knew he felt it too, the pull, the impossibility of letting go. It happened again a week later in the basement. Ethan was at a game, Mike, working late, Sophie out. Tyler came by to borrow a tool, and I let him follow me downstairs, the air cool and musty. He reached for me, his hands finding my waist, and I let him press me against the workbench, let his breath warm my neck. The rhythm was quick, desperate, my fingers clutching his shirt, his moan low and shaky. Every movement was raw, driven by a need we couldn't name, and the shame was there, sharp, but drowned by want. When it was over, we stood panting, and I pushed him away, my voice breaking. "This can't keep happening," I said. And he nodded, but his eyes were heavy, like he knew we were lying to ourselves. The close call came a few days later. Mike came home early, just as Tyler was leaving, after dropping off a playbook. We were in the kitchen, too close, my hand brushing his as I handed him a water. Mike walked in, his briefcase still in hand, and I jerked back, my face hot. "Hey, Tyler," he said, oblivious, but his eyes lingered on me, like he sensed something off. Tyler mumbled a goodbye, and I busied myself with dishes, my hands trembling, terrified Mike had seen more than he let on. That night, I lay awake picturing Ethan's face, if he knew, imagining Mike's quiet disappointment, Sophie's confusion. I wanted to end it, to tell Tyler we were done, but the thought of losing that feeling of being seen, desired, clawed at me. I was trapped, caught between guilt and need, and every day felt like a countdown to disaster. By the end of the week, I was a wreck, jumping at every text from Mike, avoiding Tyler's gaze when he was over. He tried to talk to me once when Ethan was upstairs, his voice low. "Karen, we need to figure this out." But I shook my head, my eyes burning. "We can't keep doing this," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Someone's going to find out. And as I said it, I felt the truth settle in my bones. The secret was too big, too heavy, and it was only a matter of time. The truth didn't explode like I'd feared. It crept out, quiet and devastating, reshaping everything in its wake. Tyler started pulling back his visits to the house, less frequent. His interactions with me short and careful. He'd nod when we passed, his eyes skimming over me like I was just Ethan's mom again, and it hurt a rejection that felt personal, even though I knew it shouldn't. I'd risked my family, my marriage for those moments with him, and now he was slipping away, leaving me to carry the guilt alone. I told myself it was right that this was how it had to end, but the loss of that spark of feeling wanted left me hollow, like I'd lost a piece of myself I'd only just found. I lived on edge, waiting for someone to notice Mike, to question my distance, Ethan to catch a stray glance, Sophie to ask why I was so quiet. But the house hummed along, oblivious, while I unraveled inside. At dinner, Mike would talk about work, Ethan about soccer, and I'd nod, my hands clenched under the table, terrified my face would betray me. I'd see Tyler's shadow in every corner, the laundry room counter, the basement workbench, and the memories were a double-edged blade cutting with both shame and longing. I wanted to forget to be the woman I was before, but I couldn't unfeel him, couldn't erase the way he'd made me feel alive. Then one Saturday, it came undone. Ethan was at a game, Mike at the office, Sophie at a friend's. Tyler texted, asking to talk, saying he'd be quick. I should have said no, but I let him come, my heart pounding as he stepped into the kitchen. He stood by the counter, arms crossed his face, tense shadows under his eyes. "I'm leaving Karen," he said, his voice low, rough. "Got a job offer in Chicago. I'm taking it." My stomach dropped, and I gripped the edge of the sink, steadying myself. "It's not just the job," he said, his eyes meeting mine, raw and heavy. "I can't be around you and not want this. And it's killing me knowing what I'm doing to Ethan, to you." I wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't get to walk away, to admit how much I still craved him despite the guilt. But his words hit hard, echoing my own fears. "You're sure?" I asked, my voice barely audible, and he nodded, running a hand through his hair. "I love Ethan like a brother," he said, his voice breaking. "And I care about you, Karen, more than I should. But this, it's not right. I need to go before I ruin everything." His eyes held mine, full of regret, and I saw it then, the weight he carried, the same shame tearing me apart. He was leaving to protect me, to protect Ethan, even if it meant breaking us both. "What about me?" I asked, my voice trembling, and it was the most selfish thing I'd ever said. He stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that I felt his warmth. "You're stronger than you think," he said, his voice soft. "You'll be okay." Then he turned, leaving the kitchen, the door clicking shut behind him. I sank to the floor, my face in my hands, the silence deafening, and let the tears come hot and bitter, for what I'd done, for what I'd lost. Tyler left a week later. Ethan mentioned it casually, saying Tyler got a job out of state, and I nodded, my throat tight like it was nothing. But it was everything. Mike noticed I was off, asking over dinner, "You feeling okay?" Karen and I lied, blaming work stress, but his eyes lingered, like he sensed something deeper. Ethan didn't suspect, as far as I know, but I carried the fear of it every day, the knowledge that I'd betrayed his trust, Mike's love, Sophie's innocence. I went through the motions, cooking, working, cheering at Sophie's recitals, but I was haunted, caught between the woman I was and the one I'd become. I crossed a line I can't uncross. But for one night, one reckless, desperate, undeniable night, I felt like a woman again.